Rule 34 artists must be stopped. We must stop them with hammers. We will strike them with hammers until their wicked ideas are no more.
Oh my god. Oh my god, don't worry about that. That was my evil twin who hates kink, self-expression, and going outside. Which we have that last thing in common, actually. I also hate going outside. Welcome to my vlog. It's not a video essay, because I think those need to be written out in advance. Or do they? I don't think you should feel ashamed about feeling ashamed about sexual topics, about sexuality. I think that's the society that I grew up in. One of its greatest goals seems to be shame and pushing discussions of sexuality to the outskirts, to where you will have to feel like you're going somewhere that you're not supposed to go, or talking to people you're not supposed to talk to, or about things you're not supposed to know about, or think about, or feel about. I just want you to know, I really hold as little resentment as I can possibly muster towards people who are repulsed by sexual topics. But what troubles me is people who are repulsed by people who are sexual. And because, see, I don't know, this is so weird because I don't know who you are and what your relationship to sex is. So all I can do is kind of either share my feelings and beliefs, and I can talk from my experience from things that I have believed and what my process of chipping away at figuring out what I believe is and what I care about and what I do with my free time. And I guess the first thing is just that there's nothing wrong with jerking off, with pleasuring yourself, with just there's nothing wrong with it. If you can tell me something that's wrong with it, I will block you probably, because I don't know. There's nothing wrong with just in the isolated bubble, the platonic ideal of jerking it is all it does is it's just 5 minutes to an hour of maybe working up a little bit of a sweat and then producing some goo. Or yeah, I can only speak from my experiences, okay? So that's what it's like for me. And then it makes you feel good in the head. And that's it. Those are the physical actions involved. The other thing associated is what you are thinking about and what you're imagining, or what you're okay, so there's just what's happening in your mental space, And that can be to your thoughts, to things that you conjure in your mind, whether they're like memories or fantasies or what have you. Now I'm trying to imagine if there's a person on Earth who jacks off to nothing, like they achieve like a blank slate, like mental place where they aren't thinking about anything and they're just doing the physical activity. I dare not think this any further. The other direction, where you are watching a video or reading a story or browsing artwork or looking at a piece of your favorite art or a few pieces of your favorite art, or you're searching tags on websites for whatever particular things you would like to find. When I refer to sexual kinks, I mean kinks that you are in the context of hoping to climax, or to get yourself hyped up to at some point achieve climax. And I label that specifically because I'm quite interested in talking about non-sexual kinks in a non-sexual context. Within the scope of this video is kinks in a individual context. So not kinks that you play out with a partner or partners or friends or whatever consenting thing that you have going on. That's great. That's whatever. I'm just talking about jerking it. There's not a category of like, these kinds of kinks are sexual and these kinds of kinks are non-sexual. Any kink can be approached in a sexual or non-sexual context. And allowing yourself to figure out what interests you, I think, is fun. And and people get fascinated by things and they like to explore scenarios and concepts. And I think when you're the type of person with an interest that you like to explore over and over again, is that's what one would define a kink. And so, in case it's like your first day on Earth, some examples of kinks are like, furries, and inflation, shrinking, scat, poop, in case you want to like, poop or like diapers, you want to poop in your diaper, you want to play with it, maybe you want to taste it. What else is there? Oh, like basically everything on the fucking planet that you could think of. I could spend the next 7,000 years of this video listing kinks, potential kinks, inventing new kinks, if I could even do such a thing, as if I could possibly come up with something that hasn't been come up with yet. I probably could. I don't want to sell myself short. I'm pretty creative. So I don't really have anywhere that I'm going with this video, but I really enjoy Gooseworx art, Gooseworx cartoons and concepts. I was not familiar with Gooseworx until one day the Amazing Digital Circus was the very first thing on my YouTube recommendation feed on the homepage. And it was there because the algorithm knows that I need to see that shit immediately. That is, my domain is cartoons with themes and stuff to think about, and and I needed to be there. I needed to watch the Digital Circus pilot, and as soon as I finished watching that, before anything else, I went to Google and I typed Gooseworx TF, and I searched. TF stands for transformation. When it's abbreviated like that, it's understood in the context of kink. Transformation kink is, let's see, there's a lot of things it could be. I mean, because it's a bit broad. Many kink categories can be, and it's important to think about that if you have kink friends or kink enemies, to understand. It's very easy to try and think like that just the one vague label of a kink tells you a lot about how that specific person cares about the kink and how they interact with it and what parts of it interest them specifically. Because like there's too many variations on the themes. Like Vor is a great example because there's so many different ways to play in every space. Like whether you're the one being eaten, whether you're the one eating, if the one being eaten is small or if they're the same size somehow, if it's lethal, if somehow they get eaten and they're just safe in there. That's generally called soft vor versus hard vor. There's a whole, and for every single one of those categories, there's a plethora of ranges to where, like, you know, like I have a bit of a fascination with like being small and hanging out in somebody's mouth, but I don't have any interest in like being swallowed at all. Like I just think it would be really cool to like touch someone's teeth. You know, like think about how like sturdy and like you could go like you can knock on them, you know, like and you could feel them and you could grab them with your tiny little fingers. If you're not familiar with why allowing people to be sexual is cool and exploring things that make you feel certain ways in a fictional space is like, it's like this. I'm just trying to establish my baseline for how we're gonna be okay talking about kink on this channel in this space. Is like one might have the attitude of like that they're kind of repulsed by it, but maybe they could be talked into like allowing other people to maybe do it as long as they keep it to themselves and like never tell anyone else about it or never post about it ever. Then like that's kind of like a shame first mindset, and I'm coming from like the far opposite end, where I am excited for people to make art, and to explore their like psycho landscape of like how the experiences in their life have shaped them, or just what they're interested in thinking about, in exploring, why, like, to whatever degree, if it like, if you could trace it back to like maybe like trauma or something, that's fine and that's cool and that's great if it's like a space that you can explore big feelings and difficult feelings, but you don't have to do that also. Like don't trick yourself into just or I don't know, I would recommend against like making these weird little caveats of like, oh well, I guess it's okay if you have these exact justifications for it, where it's like I don't think that super matters. I think just shit's fun to explore. It's fun to explore yourself without shame. And beyond that, I also think it's deeply not just okay, but in fact good to be able to share these facets of yourself, and you can rephrase that as many different ways as you need, whether it's different like facets of your life, of your psychology, of what matters to you, of what you enjoy spending your time thinking about, writing about, drawing. You shouldn't have to keep all of that under like a tight lock and key, and hide it from any form of social activity. It doesn't have to be a strictly isolated thing. In fact, I think it's much better to find some social outlet, even if it's, and it's sometimes it's good to keep it like compartmentalized a little bit. Like if maybe you just have like a side account where you post your NSFW writings that you don't want tied to your regular account or to your main like personhood, because you are allowed privacy and some degree of control over who knows what about you. And I do mean you specifically. I'm not allowed that privacy. So if you want to know anything about me, like, you can go ahead and find it. I'm sure you can. But why do I think it's good? Why do I think it's good to be able to explore these things in a social-ish setting? Well, because then you get to share with others that it's normal and okay, that, I think when it's such a private thing, there's a stigma that cannot be easily combated when no one's talking about it. Then the only cases you hear about people having kinks and fetishes is like when it gets revealed and they get outed as like, oh, this person was a huge creep, they're a huge pervert, they were into this and this, and like you kind of get the idea that, oh, so only like evil, bad, perverted freaks are into evil, bad, perverted things. But it's like, no, actually, guess what? Like, lots of extremely nice people are freaks. A lot of nice, wonderful, creative people are weird and perverted. So back to what I was saying about Googling Gooseworx TF. Shit, I don't know. Sorry, maybe this is a really weird video to make, but like, it's just, that was my reaction to watching the Digital Circus pilot was oh, this is an exploration of subjects, of beings who were once human, who against their will have been permanently transformed into non-human things, like toys and dolls and it's like some of the keystones of the transformation kink is just exploring the or at least some of my favorite like transformation content is stuff that explores a somewhat psychologically realistic reaction. What would happen to just your average person or any person if they suddenly were like, or undergo the process of transforming into something else? Depending on the interests of the particular artist, maybe that's a gradual transformation where you get to see like different parts change or grow or shrink or get recolored. Or maybe that's not important. Maybe it's just a poof, instant thing. Now you're this. And dealing with how they would react to it.
Gotta hide!
So me, a silly little weirdo who loves weirdos, I recognize right away in Digital Circus that, oh, this premise is built with transformation in mind. Like, it's, or not, it just is. This is a transformation premise. And that's intriguing and it's exciting and it's fun because it's, it's a fun space to explore. I think just as what I am, like, don't you ever feel weirdly trapped by your physical form? Like, I didn't choose to be a human. I had no part in the customization, like, process, the design process. I just have 2 arms and 2 legs and a head, and this is just the way that it is, and the way that I'm gonna be forever. That is fucking something, I guess. Would love to maybe plug myself into a computer someday and in all functional ways exist as something else. That would be pretty fun. That would be pretty cool. Gooseworx posted about an OC whose superpower is turning into a car, and it's not a, and from my like reading of it, and from what's like signifiers are in the art piece and the description and everything, it's not like a sexual piece. It's just the themes of the kink that you can explore, of like, you know, your body changing, taking up a different amount of space. Like, is it a little awkward? Do you own it? Does it happen at will, or does it just happen kind of spontaneously? It leads way for like humor and empowerment and just dealing with, you know, the hand you've been dealt, that you sometimes turn into a car, and and the description of this drawing is fucking phenomenal. I'll go through. I'm gonna do a dramatic reading of it. New tabletop role-playing game character. Don't laugh. Please, stop making fun of me. She can turn into a classic Volkswagen Beetle. She got her powers from a space wizard. She wants to know who killed her mom. Basic shit. You learn this in Storytelling 101, and you don't subvert any of the tropes because you're a traditionalist. And you're not trying to distract from the fact that your entire game is run by and played by weird perverts with object TF fetishes. That is not what we're talking about today. We're talking about a funny little superhero who can turn into an outdated car. But Goosey, that's just the premise of Turbo Teen. You can't do that. That's stealing. Now listen here, you little shit. I came up with this idea while playing Adventure Beetle Racing on the N64, while also having a discussion with friends about the Blue Beetle trailer. And I said I would prefer it if the Blue Beetle actually just turned into a blue Volkswagen Beetle instead of whatever that movie's about. I didn't see it. Apparently nobody saw it. Did you see it? Yeah, I didn't think so. Anyway, Turbo Teen turns into a desirable car, and he can only change into a car depending on his body temperature. Not at will, like this cool original character can. So she already has that above Turbo Bitch, and she does it instantaneously. That's right, no weird slow transformation sequence where her face stretches out. That would be gross. She just poofs into a car in less than a second. But anyway, I hope you all have a blessed day. I gotta go back to working on my award-winning hit animated series, The Amazing Digital Circus by Glitch Productions. Catch you on the flippity flip. Don't let me catch you joining any gangs that don't align with my personal beliefs. I'll have to use my wealth and power to be the puppet master of a violent and bloody gang war, with you on the front lines. And I really don't want to have to do that, but I will if provoked. Where am I? I think the exciting goal of a cartoon like Digital Circus might be to spark conversation about kink, about the presence of kink, and how to maturely coexist between people who are kinky and people who aren't kinky, and people who are kinky in a sexual way and people who are kinky in a non-sexual way. That when you produce something like this, it allows, you know, anybody to be in the audience, which is a funny statement because, like, you know, what do I mean by allowing anybody to be in your audience? But like, if Digital Circus had any hint of actually being like sexual about it, then I think the non-sexual people would feel excluded. They would feel like, oh, so this is a freak cartoon for freaks, and I don't want to watch it then. Because when people make mature content surrounding an adult cartoon, are they doing something wrong? I appreciate a more loving understanding of people engaging with art and creating art coming from a place of creativity and love, and there seems to be this like idea that if something has a sexual nature to it, that it's not made with love or thought or creativity, but that it's just made with lust. That it's and that for some reason it's gross, and that it's like degenerative, that it's removing whatever value the thing that it's inspired by, or the like whatever else could be valuable about it. The attention is drawn to the sexual aspect of it like a lightning rod, and I think that's too bad. I think it makes sense with our fucking culture that is terrified of explaining sexuality to anyone, because if you try to consider like a universe in which minors are allowed to know about kinks, well, that's a scary door to open. Nobody wants to talk to children about sex, so we hide it from them for as long as possible, only until they're like and hiding it doesn't work. I don't know, like let me flip this into the using my I statements, because I was a teenager once, and even before that I was a child. And you know what, at some point, at a certain point, I started knowing what it meant to want to jack off and to orgasm. Despite being raised in like a Christian household, I learned about sexuality, and I'm only ever like glad that I did. Like of course first it was like coming out of the cracks of my cisgender hetero upbringing of like, of course it was just like, oh, so I should sexualize women and I should jack off to women's bodies, right? Okay, I'm starting to get this whole life thing now. I'm thankful that I got to grow up in a way where I got to meet people who who could help me like kind of expand my worldview of like, there's more to it than that. There's more things to explore, and you don't just have to take it as a given, the gender and sexuality that you're assigned. You can explore and feel things out, and that's very fun. I guess this is the nature of being individuals on this planet, is that I guess we have a hard time seeing what other people are doing with an understanding that there's reasons behind it. As opposed to if you go back through your personal memories of your life experiences, you can understand how to justify the things that you've thought and the things that you have felt as like, well, of course it was some kind of normal because I felt it. And I'm the center of the universe, and I'm normal, so like I can, even if it takes some time or some ways to figure out, like I can work whatever I do and want to do into an understanding of like, no, this is like good and right and normal. And anyone else who does things differently is probably weird and different and bad, probably. And I think like it's one of the biggest splits, or one of the biggest gaps of like understanding, is people understanding their own sexual desires as opposed to trying to understand the world as a thing with sexual interests or kinky interests, and to just I don't know, it's like I want to use this language that is so like middling of like, to allow people their kinks is still falling too short for where I'm at, because who the fuck thinks they get to allow or disallow people's feelings? Like what are you going to do, I ask, but please don't answer, because some people will genuinely answer that they want the sexual deviants killed, either directly, literally murdered, or just denied resources and outcast from public life until they are functionally dead, until they can just die somewhere where we don't have to see it happen. So like no, it's not just you should allow people to create art that explores kink. It's that people are going to do it, and you look like a fucking chump when you react to it with like shock and surprise and disgust, as like, you know, you don't have to comment on everything. You don't have to but like, you know, go ahead. Like, I'm not gonna stop you from feeling how you feel about it. I'm just gonna feel ways about it, and I'm gonna talk about it until somebody stops me. And that's the cycle of life. So, Digital Circus isn't the first time kink has entered Gooseworx animations in a way that is perceptible to me. There's a Gooseworx cartoon that is quite popular, and then there's a sequel to that cartoon. I think it's called Elaine Gets Adopted. Elaine the Bounty Hunter. That, for some reason, someone who is like a fully sapient person-esque anthro creature with like a triangle head, because why not? Animation is fun. Gets put in the pound and gets adopted by somebody, and like gets walked on a leash and kept in a dog house, and this is just presented, and and what can the viewer do but either laugh or cringe or just marvel at the story unraveling before them, because then the way that story plays out is that the guy who adopted her was giving her like these drugs that give her these like hallucinogenic experiences, like a full-on trip, but then he like dies and gets taken to a afterlife of sorts. But for some reason, Elaine comes with. For some reason, a living Elaine comes with to the afterlife and sees some shit. Like, so now it's not just a hallucinatory trip. Like, which I think is actually really awesome. That maybe that's why that's written that way, to give the context of, okay, here's a drug-induced trip. You know, a hallucination. So here's the thing afterwards that is not that. It's something else, but you're still seeing things. Like, I think it leaves the viewer without that like thought terminating explanation of like, wow, what a trippy cartoon. I really felt like I was seeing things. And it's like, no, you were seeing things a minute ago, but now something else is happening. And you're seeing like the fucking existential end of reality, like where these beasts roam, and you and how could you even like put to words what the hell you're seeing? And Elaine survives the experience and like wakes up in a dumpster, and someone texts, hey, are you okay? And she replies, no. And the cartoon ends. This is not the only place where non-sexual kink shows up in Gooseworx cartoons. to be honest, I think like at this point, kink could just define things that are interesting, little like thought things that you can like focus on and think about again and again, because either because they are scary or enticing or kind of exciting in some way. The thought of like being owned by another entity is like, you know, it's got some feelings associated with it, good and bad. So to find a space where you're allowed to talk about it and you're allowed to have fun with it and you're allowed to experiment and iterate again and again, I think is what makes kink such like a thing to explore. Is like, it's not really something that you can just come into and do once and then be like, okay, I get it then, that's all I wanted to explore. It's like, I when I like I don't know, like some of my personal kinks, like it's extremely clear to me that like I can enter a mind space where I'm having fun with it and like feeling excitement about it, but it feels like it's mainly I can feel that excitement and fun with it on the offskirts of why it would scare me so much and why it's like a deep rooted dread fear that I have uh, for the situations that I like to jack off about is like, and you know, going into that is like that's an angle of kink that people do talk about, that I do read about, of like, you know, using it as a space to explore thoughts that are otherwise scary, like so scary they feel unapproachable, yet your brain says that you know, so scary that you want to think, well, I would prefer to never think about that again, thank you very much. But your brain isn't really capable of deleting things, for most people. Like, if you have like a thought that you don't want to think, you can put like some bubble wrap around it and then think like, I'm gonna try not to think about this. uh, well, I think exploring it in a kink context is the bubble wrap, is, you know, like exposure therapy or whatever, like, you know, presenting yourself with more memories of exploring the concept in which you come out the other side okay, is healing and makes it easier to exist without, you know, the possibility that, uh-oh, you know, you've been avoiding thinking about this for months and months and years, but then one day, against all of your best efforts, you think about it again and it's so big and overwhelming and you're so unprepared to think about it in either the broad sense or in some new specific configuration that your brain has come up with, because like, we can't help it, we go to sleep and sometimes we have a nightmare, and it's like, and then you may, and I don't know, I'm 27 and I have reached points in my life where I thought, okay, I'm an adult now, I'm familiar with the things that I used to have nightmares about. I don't really think my nightmares will get to me anymore. I think that, like, you know, I would probably just understand, like, oh, I'm having a nightmare, so I'm not going to be scared. Um, but your brain is pretty good at coming up with new things to freak you out about. And so, so you gotta fight the kink arms race to outmaneuver any possible scenario that would freak you out to think about. You don't have to do this. You do not have to do this if you don't want to. If it doesn't, if it, you know, it's, do things that work for you, that bring joy to your life, you know. I just think understanding kink as an option, like, no matter what it is, you don't hurt anybody by thinking about it and by exploring it. And if you, I don't know, this isn't really what I thought the point of this video would be, but I guess it is. The point is that, like, if you have things that you're interested in exploring, think about it. You know, just think about it. So, do I have anything else to say? Yada yada yada. Not really. I didn't really have much of like a point or idea to this video. Other than the fact that like this planet is a fucking cesspit, and I don't really care what information about me is out there. Like, I just want to talk about what matters to me, even if it's like kind of controversial or weird. Like, kink is like the thing. It's my special interest. Like, very literally, I'm super serious about this. Because sure, okay, like it's in a completely separate circle of information about me. Like, you know, there's me jacking off. I love coming up with fantasy scenarios to jack off to. I love writing new ones, collaborating with friends, sharing them with others, reading other people's fantasies that are in my wheelhouse, that they post as like stories on websites, like for Affinity. But then also in a completely separate circle, and a particularly non-sexual circle, is my special interest in kink as a concept, in what do other people find fascinating, even if it's not my thing. I really do enjoy learning about what other people's things are.
So, we shall hang.
I guess all I want to say is I look forward to more digital circus. I've got reason to believe and hope and look forward to it potentially raising the bar for discussion around kink for the general public. And by the general public, I mean the YouTube comments section. All right, well, I hope you find peace. I hope you have a good day or night. And I hope you're being nice to me in the comments. Because if you're not, I'll be a little sad about it, I guess. And then I'll try to move on with my life. You know, you only have one life. Talk about what's important to you. Explore it. Share it with others. And you know, and that doesn't mean share it with everybody, because not everybody wants to talk about the same things, and you know, like, you may find that like, oh, this thing that's really important to me, I want to share it with my friends and family, but like, it wouldn't be appropriate. None of them like this thing. They all kind of openly despise these things. Then the exciting thing is that you're allowed to make more friends. And I recommend you do. All right. Bye-bye, powerful creatures and pathetic little worms. I'll be back next time, continuing my quest to define, divide, and devour God. And I hope you don't get sunburnt. Do 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 do.